Papa Zero here once again, and today I got a cast on crit and cast on hit combo build ready to show you. This build mainly revolves around the Axii Wood and its properties. That's right, me, myself, and I have bestowed upon it the secret ancient runecraft called T17, also known as Trigger a Socketed Fire spell on hit. That is where a majority of the damage in this build comes from. However, having links to spare, I wanted to do something fun. Something not seen since the early days of Path of Exile 1.3. And that is spit out as many spells as possible and do some serious damage. Maybe it's just me, but this build really is reminiscent of cast on crit builds made back in the day before the cast on crit was nerfed, where you could unload what felt like 100 spells per second. Now, I went for the Slayer Ascendancy and Power Charge stacking because they have a great symbiotic relationship both offensively and defensively. I have chosen the 4 spells that get triggered very carefully. The main reason for the choices I have made is based on the Power Charge ring I found myself in the first week of the league. Hold on, hang on to your horses, you will get to see it in just a couple of minutes. That thing is a beaut. I was new when I picked it up, when I saw it was gonna be a build in the future, and here we are. Nevertheless, the 4 spells I use are Wave of Conviction, Purifying Flame, Rolling Magma, and Ethereal Knives. I tested out about a dozen different spells in the cast on crit setup, and both clear and single target damage that felt the best were Magma and EK. Hence why I'm using those specifically. With all that said, if you do end up making this build, play around, test for yourself what feels the best. Let me know. Maybe you won't even want that COC setup and forgo that entirely. Defensively, I have max block and spell block, and that's thanks to mostly the passive tree, Will Clash Helm, and Megalomaniac Cluster Jewels. I also have 9 endurance charges, Arctic Armor, Flesh and Stone, 1100 energy shield regen, 30 life gain on hit, and Slayer's Overleach. All of my skills are linked to the life tap support and therefore cost life. And if you only have the setup with the cast on hit in your axe, then the Slayer's Overleach is plenty enough to support the life that they cost. However, if you also have the COC setup like I do, it won't be enough and you will slowly die. Your life will slowly drain because you're exerting too much life force. So you have few options. Number 1 is to get yourself the same Watcher's Eye jewel I have that grants life gained on hit. Number 2 is to put life gained on hit support gem in your Lancing Steel setup, which is not optimal, but you can do that. Number 3 is to not use the passive node Zealot's Oath, but then all of your energy is wasted unless you forgo Righteous Fire because it's just gonna drain. Yeah. And lastly, number 4 is to not use Zealot's Oath, but to take Eldritch Battery. Then the energy shield is not wasted, and you might be able to sustain the mana cost that your spells cost when you trigger them. But you still lose 20% of your EHP, so choose wisely. Last thing I'm going to mention before going into the gear section is that the only mod to really watch out for is map mod, is Elemental Reflect. Rest are quite manageable. Even things like less recovery, no leech, and no regen, you just have to turn off Righteous Fire, and they are fine to run. Let's go over the gear. Beautiful axe that I bought. I think it was about 20 divines. Not too bad. Not perfect, obviously, but fantastic for all purposes that are needed. +8. Wow. +7. Level 8 Empower. Crazy, I know. Will Clash, +1 Power Charge, about 6 divines. The Squire, 2 divines. Relicish Impatient Boots. Hello. Maybe this is where you can get one of those brutal charges or the blue ones or whatever. This is a very flexible spot. If you have the resistances that you need, get yourself a better belt. Gloves with decent amount of life, dexterity, self-crafted, physical damage converted, very important. I was too cheap to get 25% phys converted to lightning implicit, so I just have about 95%. But you can even find yourself some, Warlord or Pinnacle or something, gloves where you could potentially get 50% of physical damage converted to a element, also would suffice. Calendra's Touch. Yes, that's it. Ooh, where am I going with this? Replica Restless Ward. Very nice. I got myself a defensive one. Getting plus to... I suppose I didn't think about this, but maybe getting some plus to AoE or plus projectiles would be beneficial for the damage of these two spells, but I think defensively this was one of the best ones out there, so that's what I got. Badge of the Brotherhood, Turquoise Amulet. Enough said. I wanted my endurance charges to be the same as my power charges and frenzy charges, and thanks to the Slayer Ascendancy and this amulet, we can do so. That's why I'm only stacking power charges to get what I want. Last but certainly not least, is this beauty of a ring. Just beautiful, awesome, perfect. This is actually when I was doing the video where I was running the different cortexes and other distant memory maps. I happened to actually, when I was recording it, I happened to find this one. Didn't even realize it at the time, and it wasn't until like a day later when I actually went through and identified all the rings and stuff that I got off the ground. And I was like, oh my god! This was maybe like 5 divines. I'm like, let me just hang on to it. I imagine now it's probably, I don't know, 20, 30, 40, I don't even know how much. So this is one of the most expensive items in the build. Do you absolutely need this? No. Now, I didn't test this, but per POB, it states that instead of using, if you wanted to save yourself a couple divines, instead of using the Squire Shield, you could use Malachi's Loop because of the +2 maximum power charges. Now, the DPS was almost exactly the same. However, you would lose that life tap support link. So either you would have to put it in your axe, and then you're losing that +7 to support its skill gems, and you try to do something with the Eldritch Battery and Zealot's Oath combo where you're casting spells with your energy shield, or you just don't do the setup. The tree is fairly standard. Again, I was just going for primarily getting block and spell block so I can kind of achieve that near maximum for both. Really only the one spell block cluster up top is from the tree. Everything else is from that Megalomaniac cluster jewels. Probably the secondary or maybe the tertiary most expensive item is the Progenesis Flask. However, you be the judge. I don't think it's really necessary. I just happen to have it, so of course I'm going to use it. This build I feel like can be made much, much cheaper. Overall, in general, really there's like 2-3 items. Really you just need the axe. Get yourself the axe and you're gonna be just fine. This, or if you search for the mod, you'll just notice that there's quite a them already crafted. They range between 10 to 100 divines, but a lot of them have that socketed spells are supported by increased damage support and increased critical strike support. So I didn't, again, this is the one that I bought. This is the one that I think I'm going to try to use on another build, so that's why I got it. But get yourself one that is shiny, that you'll enjoy. Put it in POB, see how it fares in comparison to this one, and let me know. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time with another beautiful build.